All right, Battletech enthusiasts, we've got an incoming comment here. Working on some ideas off of my blog, Fritz, a long-range missile setup. Focusing primarily on vehicles because my battle value and my points for mechs, I've got a plan. I know what I'm going to do, but I like that LRM enthusiasm, and I want to build something out from the vehicle perspective. That's what we're going to explore in this podcast. And then I'm going to turn it around, turn it over to you guys, and get some feedback, get some ideas, get some refinement that I'm going to use on there. So regardless of the war game, really fast, especially with Battletech, what I try to do, I come up with an idea. I come up with something I want to do on the tabletop, some sort of build, some sort of flavor, some sort of narrative, and then I try to build it out over multiple battle value points on there. Because one of the things I discovered a long time ago, playing Warhammer 40,000, another excellent miniature game, there were certain armies that I wanted to play, but they only worked at like 2,000 points. They only really came together at this high level high battle value play point in the game. And if you played an opponent who was like, look, I only have a 1,000 point army, well, I couldn't play the type of build I wanted to. So then I thought the idea, let's take a narrative and a theme and build it out over multiple battle values. So regardless of where my opponent wants to play, I've got an answer to capture it. And I've tried to do that moving through in Battletech and in all the games that I enjoy playing. So for a lower battle value, where I would go would be some hovercraft on there. And I would look, the primary thing I would look at with the hovercraft are ideally at a minimum long-range missile 10 packs. And I would look to get 2 or 3. Right away in any LRM build, you need redundancy, meaning I need at least 2 or 3 of whatever the core delivery system is going to be. This allows for the dice. I mean, first look, I have to be in range. I might be firing indirect. I might be firing direct. There's going to be modifiers there. You're going to be moving. Then after I hit, I have to see how many missiles actually connect. And then we have to see the spots where they land. There's a lot of what ifs and how they go on there. So I want to make sure that when I shoot, if I roll average, I'm going to hit you with something. I'm going to be hitting you with something that battle round. If I roll legendary, you're going to be entirely lit up. So it's not enough just to take one. If I do find myself taking one of something in my narrative, that means we're playing a really, really, really small skirmish game. 1 or 2 mechs on 1 or 2, as opposed to maybe a lance with a support company in there. And you can play both ways. It works both ways on there. So I would look at the lower end battle value, 2 or 3 hovercraft, LRM 10 packs on there. I'm not that so much worried about spotters or other things because you have extreme mobility with the LRM 10s. And the protection that you're going to have comes from just moving insane with those hover units. So they're going to look to dance at medium or long range for the missiles. They're going to look to hit you. They might fire indirect if there is a spotter, but I'm not going to have a dedicated spotter because obviously if I'm that starved for battle value and points, I might not put it into a dedicated spotter. Dedicated spotter in Battletech, by my definition, is a unit, a vehicle, a mech. Its only job is to get into an ideal position on the table and spot for your indirect. And we're going to look to utilize indirect directly because that's going to keep my LRM units safe and happy and protected against return fire. So let's kind of now move out to what I think is a really solid build. It is an investment in points. LRM carriers are not cheap, but what you get is pretty intense on there, and it's hard to argue against it when you're facing it. More tactics on the LRM carrier. I've pushed that up to my blog and my podcast on my YouTube channel here. You can find that under the Battletech list or just popping over to my blog and searching for Battletech LRM carriers. Primarily, we're going to take 2. That equals 120 real-time long-range missiles coming at you. There's redundancy. Do I take 3 if I have the points? But it gets very, very pricey on there. But a good solid Firebase, 2 long-range missile carriers on there. A dedicated spotting unit. What I'm going to use there, I know we said vehicles, but sometimes I use a Valkyrie for that because the Valkyrie has the long-range missile capacity that it could possibly also shoot. It's got some decent speed. It's got some decent armor on there. I might go with a Locust. That goes partially off my obsession with being the most feared Locust pilot in the Inner Sphere. So you could spot with a mech, but my ideal spotting setup would be a Karnov transport and infantry. Turn 1, this thing just flies out. Turn 1, it's anywhere on the tabletop or the hex map. Then turn 2, infantry get out in some cover, on a hill, someplace really, really good, really, really solid on there. Now you have literally 360-degree spotting ability, and to get them out is going to require something dedicated on there. That is a dedicated spotting unit. Now, if it gets destroyed or if your opponent moves into position where something else is going to spot, of course, you will do that, but you have the dedicated spotting unit. So we've got 2 long-range missile carriers, and we've got 2 infantry in a Karnov. I take 2 more infantry, and just really, really cheap foot infantry, I park them near the LRM carriers. That creates kind of this threat bubble. I give them long-range missiles. This way, if my opponent tries to come in to stop those long-range missile carriers on there, there's a bubble. There's something defensive on there. And again, that's not to say I'm not going to break off some other mechs or I might not move to defend, but it creates a nice little hornet's nest or wasp's nest, depending on your mech, right, that they have to deal with for minimal battle value. Look, I'd love to put 2 demolishers on there. I love demolisher tanks, but I don't have the battle value for this type of setup. When I up it, if I go with mechs, if we start to lead into mechs and I take longbows, now I start taking demolishers. You can see how the list, this idea of a Firebase, minimal battle value, 2 to 3 hovercraft, LRM 10s. Some more battle value, mid-range, 2 long-range missile carriers, Karnov infantry, foot infantry to bodyguard the long-range missile carriers with LRMs. Maximum battle value is in I want this to be the Lance, kind of a LRM recon striker Lance on there, long-range support Lance. Then I'm going longbows, LRM carriers, demolishers, Thunderbolt or Warhammer as a babysitter on there, lots of infantry with the Karnov. The build goes out and out and out and out on there. But again, those missiles, those long-range missile carriers, 120 real-time missiles coming at you, that's a lot of boom boom. That's a lot of stuff blowing up. That's a lot of stuff shooting out at you. And it has the redundancy where if you can zero in on a target and you can get them in medium range and your missile carrier hasn't moved and they haven't fully moved, they're going to be taking some major heat on this turn. And on a side note, on a follow-up, it finally builds up a chance for a legendary moment in Battletech. You know, those moments where, look, you need 12s to hit. You need 12s for something to happen. It's probably not going to happen. That many missiles builds in for a chance to roll 12s on there. A game where we were in city fighting, there was I was going to say Stinger Wasp. I'm pretty sure it was a Wasp running around on the table, doing recon, acting as a spotter, kind of firing off. Just a real pain on there, a pain for the battle value. And I'm not going to peel off any tanks or any other mechs to deal with it, but I got to take this thing out. So it comes into range of my LRM carriers, but there were other targets on there. So I call in that strike. I'm like, light up hex number, whatever, take it out, take it down. I connected with like 44 or 45 missiles. I hit with like 3, and I needed 12s. I've never rolled like that in my life. On a side tangent, I probably would have liked to save those 12s for headshots or other rolls, but you never know when you're going to get the 12s in Battletech. I blew off like its arm and its leg. It just turned it into a stumpy mech, and it's just there. And it's like, what? Just because I saturated that area with so many missiles, something was going to hit, despite the movement modifiers and everything. So when you can leverage that much firepower, interesting things begin to happen and open up in Battletech.